University of Guam will open the exhibition Shortcuts, the Art of Jeff Harris. And with me now is Mr. Harris. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first, I understand that you were born and raised here in Guam. Tell us about your upbringing.
Born in Guam. Lived sometime when I was young. I lived in Wisconsin. I don't really remember that. I must have blocked it out with all the snow and things. But yeah, lived most of my life in Guam. I spent most of my free time at my family's beach in Apsen, northern in the island.
I see. So your family is originally from Guam?
Yes, my mother is Chamorro.
Oh,
Castro,
okay.
Peru.
Now, when did you leave Guam?
I've gone back and forth several times. I left for college, and then I returned and worked here for probably several years. Then I left again to get married, and then I returned again in the 90s, early 90s, stayed for a couple of years, and then left again. And I'm still away now, so I've been off island for about 16 years now.
Wow. So were you always into writing and drawing?
Drawing, yes. I remember I used to live in Barragata, and my cousins lived right behind me. We lived in an old dilapidated Quonset hut, and my cousins lived through the boonies, the house behind us. And I had cousin Joseph, Johnny, and Frank used to draw airplanes. Like, because Guam was very military at the time. That was the time of the Vietnam War. So there was a lot of military aircraft at the time. So they used to draw these really beautiful drawings of airplanes. And I marveled at what they could do, so I started to do that as well. And it was, that was the start. And then when I was in college here, I went to University of Guam for 4 years. When I was there, I was in my 4th year, and my cousin Ron Castro, came back from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And I saw that you could actually make a living at art. I never thought you could make a living doing artwork. I thought it was just something you could do for fun, something interesting to do. But he came back, he had a degree, and he did these amazing pieces of artwork, and he did commercial art, which I guess people don't really think that the newspaper is art. The books and magazines are art, and he did that type of stuff. And I was very interested in it, and then I decided I was going to go to the same school he went to, and I went.
Well, tell us about then Shortcuts, because it's kind of a homecoming for you, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's actually its actual start was in the mid-90s. Manny Crisostomo started Laddie magazine, and he asked me if I could do a small comic for Laddie magazine. And I said, sure, could I have a whole page? And he said yes, and he was very nice about that. So I started doing it was called The Gangs. It was a little cartoon I had in Laddie magazine. And about 96, I moved back to the States, and I continued to do Shortcuts. But then sometime in 96, I started doing something that was very Shortcuts-esque, where it was picking a subject, doing some research and having some jokes, but actual information, because before it was stale jokes and talking about going to Fandango and very, very Guam. It was about Guam. But then I switched it over to doing information about ice cream and popcorn and just things that kids would actually be interested in. And what happened is I showed the illustrations I had done for Laddie magazine to a newspaper in the town where I was living, and they asked, could you make this for our newspaper? And I said, sure. So I did that, and then 6 months later, a representative out of United Media out of New York City was, I don't know why he was in our town, but he saw it and he wanted to syndicate it. And when they syndicate it, I make the file, I send it to New York, and then from New York it's dispersed around the world.
Wow.
So I think my readership right now with Shortcuts is about 40 million people per week are around the world are seeing it.
Wow. What would you say is the inspiration, I guess, behind what you do?
Gee, I don't know. For me, I've always been interested in the world. I've always, if I see something, I want to know why. If I see a fish swimming, it's like, well, what kind of fish is that? Where did it come from? How was it raised? And that naturally progressed as I got older into, I'm a Discovery Channel junkie. I like watching Discovery Channel. It's just very similar. I like learning things. I'm very interested in learning things.
So what will people expect when they show up on Thursday to the Isla Center?
Well, it'll have a couple of things that are kind of interesting. It'll show stuff that they have never seen. It'll show, well, in addition, we'll have 400 issues of Shortcuts, several, at least 7 years of work will be up, and I've reduced them so we can fit them into the gallery because there's 400 of them. And the gallery it was very full. And it'll also show some issues without the text, because there's actually artwork underneath all those words. And then there's also going to be a section that shows how I produce each issue, and it's a kind of long and convoluted process, but and there's some behind the scenes of how things are done.
And you said you're originally from Guam. How does it feel to be back home?
Oh, I love coming. I try to get back whenever I can, and it's always, well, it's Guam, it's home. I live in the States, I have children, and that's kind of their home. But when I get back here, it just, as soon as I'm here, within 10 minutes, everything's back to normal.
Okay, any final comments?
Come to the show.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Nice meeting you. Mr. Jeff Harris, he's got his show, the Shortcuts, the exhibition, The Art of Jeff Harris. It is at the Isla Center for the Arts at the University of Guam, number 15 Dean Circle. It opens February 28th and runs through March 29th. Again, this Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. and the public, of course, is invited. Stay tuned. We're back with more news.